The wedding photos were still on the mantel when police knocked on Dorothy Harrison's door. She thought they were coming to offer condolences. Her husband of just 3 weeks had died on their honeymoon in Bali. But instead, they asked a question that would shatter everything she thought she knew. "Mrs. Harrison, do you know why your late husband's Bugatti is currently being driven by a 28-year-old man in Miami?" What followed would expose a web of deception so elaborate, so calculated, that even seasoned investigators couldn't believe what they were uncovering. Because Walter Harrison wasn't just dead, he might never have existed at all. Dorothy Mitchell had given up on love. At 68, the retired school principal from Charleston had been widowed for 12 years. Her days were filled with book clubs, charity work, and Sunday dinners with her 3 grown children. Romance. That chapter was closed. Then Walter Harrison walked into her life. It was a Tuesday morning at the Charleston Harbor Marina. Dorothy was feeding the seagulls, a ritual she'd maintained since her late husband passed. A distinguished man with silver hair and kind eyes approached, asking about the best spots for photography. His gentle manner reminded her of Jimmy Stewart. His laugh made her feel 20 years younger. "My daughter keeps telling me I need to get out more," Walter had said, adjusting his expensive camera. "Lost my wife to cancer 2 years ago, still learning how to be alone." That conversation stretched into coffee. Coffee became lunch. Within weeks, Walter Harrison had become the brightest part of Dorothy's routine. He was everything a woman could want at this stage of life: financially secure, emotionally available, and utterly devoted to making her happy. Her children were thrilled. "Mom's glowing again," her daughter Jennifer told friends. "We haven't seen her this happy since Dad died." Walter integrated seamlessly into their family. He attended grandchildren's soccer games, helped with Thanksgiving dinner, and even won over Dorothy's protective sons with his knowledge of classic cars and generous spirit. When he proposed on Dorothy's 69th birthday, surrounded by her entire family at her favorite restaurant, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "Life's too short," Walter had said, down on one knee despite his bad hip. "We've both learned that the hard way. Let me spend whatever time I have left making you smile." The wedding was small but perfect, just family and close friends at the historic Magnolia Plantation. Walter insisted on paying for everything, flying in Dorothy's college roommate from Seattle, hiring the string quartet she'd mentioned loving. He'd thought of every detail. "I want to give you the honeymoon you've always dreamed of," he'd whispered during their first dance. "Where have you always wanted to go?" "Bali." She'd said it without thinking, a dream from her youth that she'd never fulfilled. 3 weeks later, they were boarding a first-class flight to paradise. The Mulia resort in Bali was beyond anything Dorothy had imagined. Their oceanfront villa came with a private pool, personal butler, and views that belonged on postcards. Walter had spared no expense, booking spa treatments, private tours, and romantic dinners on the beach. For 12 days it was perfect. They explored ancient temples, took cooking classes, and walked hand in hand through rice terraces. Walter documented everything with his camera, insisting on photos of Dorothy against every stunning backdrop. "I want to remember every second of this," he'd say, adjusting the lens with practiced precision. "Every second with you." On their 13th morning, Dorothy woke to find Walter's side of the bed empty. His note on the pillow read, "Gone for sunrise photos at the cliff. Back for breakfast. Order the pancakes you love. W." She smiled, ordered room service for 2, and settled on the terrace with her book. An hour passed, then 2. By noon, worry had replaced contentment. Walter never missed a meal. His diabetes required regular eating. The hotel staff hadn't seen him. His phone went straight to voicemail. Security footage showed him leaving the resort at 5:47 a.m., camera bag over his shoulder, heading toward the famous cliffs at Uluwatu. By sunset, Dorothy was frantic. Local police were called. Search teams were deployed. The cliff area was known for its dangerous drops and powerful waves. Tourists went missing there every year. "Please," Dorothy begged the search coordinator. "He's not a careless person. Something's happened. You have to find him." 3 days later, they found his camera bag caught on rocks below the cliff. His wallet was inside, along with a memory card filled with sunrise photos, the last time stamped at 6:23 a.m. His body was never recovered, likely swept out by the notorious currents. Dorothy was devastated. The embassy helped with paperwork. The resort waived all charges out of sympathy. Her children flew in to bring her home. The fairy tale had become a nightmare. "At least he died doing what he loved," Jennifer said, holding her sobbing mother at the airport. "And he was so happy these last few months. You gave him that, Mum." 15 days. That's how long Dorothy had been a widow for the second time. She'd barely left her house, couldn't bring herself to look at wedding photos, hadn't even opened the sympathy cards piling up on her entrance table. When the doorbell rang at 8 p.m. on a Thursday, she almost didn't answer. But something, call it instinct, made her peek through the window. 2 police officers stood on her porch. More condolences, she thought, opening the door in her bathrobe. She was wrong. "Mrs. Harrison," the younger officer asked. "I'm Detective Ryan Foster. This is Detective Patricia Wells. May we come in? We need to ask you about your husband." "Of course," Dorothy managed, confused by their serious expressions. "Is this about the investigation in Bali? Did they find him?" The detectives exchanged glances. "Ma'am," Detective Wells said gently, "this is about a different matter. Your husband's 2019 Bugatti Chiron was involved in a traffic stop in Miami this morning." Dorothy's mind went blank. "That's impossible. Walter's car is in the garage. He left me the keys before we—" She trailed off, reality creeping in. "I haven't actually checked the garage since we left for Bali." "We know this is difficult," Detective Foster said, "but the vehicle was being driven by a man named Kevin Morales. When officers ran the plates, they came back registered to Walter Harrison at this address. Mr. Morales claims he purchased the vehicle legally. He has paperwork." "That's impossible," Dorothy repeated, but her voice was weaker now. "Walter died in Bali. There must be some mistake." Detective Wells pulled out an iPad, showing Dorothy a photo from the traffic stop. A young man posed next to the silver Bugatti, smiling. "Ma'am, have you ever seen this person before?" Dorothy shook her head, then looked closer. Something about the eyes. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my God." What the detectives told Dorothy over the next hour destroyed everything she thought she knew. The Bugatti hadn't been sold after Walter's death. It had been sold before he died. The paperwork was dated 3 days into their honeymoon, notarized in Miami while Walter was supposedly with her in Bali. "That's impossible," had become Dorothy's refrain. "We were together every moment. Check the hotel records. Check the flight manifests." They had. And that's when things got truly disturbing. Walter Harrison had indeed been on the flight to Bali. Hotel records confirmed he'd checked in with Dorothy, but security footage from Miami International Airport showed him returning to the United States on day 3 of their honeymoon, staying for 48 hours, then flying back to Bali. "He told me he wasn't feeling well," Dorothy remembered, her voice hollow. "Food poisoning. He stayed in the room for 2 days while I went to the spa. He insisted I go, didn't want to ruin my experience." During those 48 hours in Miami, Walter Harrison had conducted a massive liquidation. The Bugatti was just the beginning. He'd sold a yacht Dorothy didn't know existed, closed bank accounts she'd never heard of, transferred ownership of properties in 3 states. The buyer of the Bugatti, Kevin Morales, was cooperative but confused. He said he was dying, Morales told detectives, terminal cancer, wanted to settle his affairs quickly, leave everything clean for his wife. He gave me an incredible deal, 60% of market value. I thought I was helping a dying man. But Walter Harrison wasn't dying. Or was he? Charleston police launched a full investigation. What they found defied explanation. Walter Harrison, the man Dorothy married, definitely existed. They had his fingerprints from the marriage license, his DNA from a coffee cup, photos, videos, witnesses who'd interacted with him for months. But before meeting Dorothy, Walter Harrison was a ghost. The social security number he'd used traced back to a man who died in infancy in 1951. His supposed previous addresses were fake. The company he claimed to have founded and sold had no records. His first wife, who allegedly died of cancer. No death certificate existed, Professional con artists don't usually marry their marks, Detective Wells told Dorothy gently. They certainly don't die on the honeymoon. This doesn't fit any pattern we've seen. Dorothy's children were devastated and furious. How had they all been fooled? They'd Googled Walter, found a LinkedIn profile, seen photos of him at charity events. But investigators discovered all of it had been created in the 6 months before he met Dorothy, an elaborate digital identity built from scratch. The money trail was even more confusing. Yes, Walter had liquidated massive assets during those mysterious 48 hours, but the money hadn't gone to offshore accounts or criminal enterprises. Instead, it had been donated to various charities, children's hospitals, cancer research, homeless shelters, over $30 million, given away with no tax benefit to a dead man. This makes no sense, Dorothy's son Michael raged. He married Mom for money, but he gave away millions. He faked his death, but he's actually dead. The Bali authorities, under pressure from the US State Department, reopened their investigation. What they found only deepened the mystery. The cliff where Walter supposedly fell was re-examined. New evidence emerged that should have been caught initially. No scuff marks on the rocks where someone would have slipped, no signs of struggle or accident, but most disturbing, security footage from a nearby temple showed Walter at 6:45 a.m., 22 minutes after his last photo was taken. He was walking away from the cliffs perfectly fine. He staged it, Detective Foster explained to Dorothy. The camera bag was placed, not dropped. But then, where did he go? The investigation expanded. Hotels, airports, harbors, anywhere Walter might have escaped. Then, a break. A small charter boat company reported that a man matching Walter's description had paid cash for passage to Java the morning he disappeared. The captain remembered him clearly. American man, maybe 70 years old, the captain told investigators through a translator. Very sick, coughing blood. I almost didn't take him, but he paid triple. Said he needed to reach a special hospital in Jakarta. The trail went cold in Jakarta. Hospitals had no record of admitting anyone matching Walter's description. But investigators found something else. A crematorium near the harbor district had processed an unidentified Western male 3 days after Walter disappeared. Age estimate, 70 to 75. Cause of death, advanced lung cancer. No documentation, no identification. The body had been cremated within hours, the ashes scattered at sea per the deceased's written wishes. The crematorium worker remembered the unusual case. He came in alone, very sick, barely walking, had envelope with cash and instructions, said he had no family, wanted simple cremation. He died in our waiting room before we could even process paperwork. As investigators dug deeper into Walter Harrison's fabricated identity, a pattern emerged that chilled them. This wasn't his first identity, or his second, or even his fifth. Digital forensics specialists found traces of at least 12 different identities Walter had used over 40 years. Richard Thompson, the grieving widower in Phoenix who vanished after 6 months. Joseph Martinez, the retired professor in Burlington who disappeared during a sabbatical. Christopher Bennett, the charming businessman in Savannah who supposedly died in a car accident. Each identity followed the same pattern. Arrive in town with a convincing backstory, integrate into the community, form genuine relationships, then vanish, leaving confused friends and sometimes romantic partners behind. But never marriage, never theft, never clear criminal activity. He was running from something, Detective Wells concluded. Or someone. This level of identity management, it's beyond what normal criminals do. This is witness protection level, or spy level. The FBI was brought in. Their databases revealed nothing. CIA contacts claimed no knowledge. Even Interpol came up empty. Whoever Walter Harrison really was, he'd been invisible to law enforcement for decades. But the charity donations provided a clue. Every identity had made similar donations before disappearing, always to the same types of causes, always structured to avoid attention. Over 40 years, the man who became Walter Harrison had given away an estimated $100 million. Where does someone get that kind of money while living under false identities? Dorothy asked, still reeling from each new revelation. The answer came from an unexpected source. 6 weeks after Walter's death, Dorothy received a package with no return address. Inside was a single key and a letter in Walter's handwriting. "My dearest Dorothy, if you're reading this, then I've failed in my greatest hope, to die peacefully by your side as the man you believed me to be. I'm sorry for the deception, sorry for the pain my truth will cause." The key opens a safety deposit box at Charleston National Bank, Box 472. Everything inside is yours. The whole truth is there. More than the investigators will ever find, more than perhaps you want to know. But you deserve the truth. You gave me something I never thought I'd have. 6 months of being truly loved for who I was in the moment, not who I'd been. You'll understand when you read everything. I did love you, Dorothy. That was never a lie. Forever yours, the man you knew as Walter. Dorothy went to the bank with her children and lawyer. The safety deposit box contained 3 items: a thick manila envelope, a USB drive, and a photograph from 1978, showing a much younger Walter in military uniform standing next to a helicopter in what looked like Southeast Asia. The envelope's contents rewrote everything. Walter Harrison's real name was Lieutenant Colonel James Edwin Crawford, born in 1946 in Detroit, Michigan. He'd been a pilot in Vietnam, specializing in classified operations in Cambodia and Laos. In 1978, his helicopter was shot down during a mission that officially never happened. Crawford survived but discovered something that changed his life. His helicopter had been carrying $3 million in CIA funds meant to pay local assets. The money was presumed destroyed in the crash. Crawford was listed as MIA, presumed dead. But Crawford was very much alive, and now he had $3 million that nobody knew existed. The documents told the rest of the story in Crawford's own words. "I should have returned the money, should have reported in. But I'd seen what we were doing over there, the villages we'd destroyed, the people we'd betrayed. I'd been part of operations that would horrify the American public. I decided to disappear. The money became my mission. Every dollar would go to helping people instead of destroying them. But I couldn't do it as James Crawford. He was dead. So I became other people, many other people. For 45 years, Crawford had lived as a ghost, investing the CIA's money, growing it through careful management, and systematically giving it away. He'd become an expert at creating identities, staying ahead of technology, remaining invisible. I never meant to fall in love. That was never part of the plan. I'd come to Charleston to establish another identity, donate another few million, then disappear. But then I met you, Dorothy. You reminded me of Sarah, my fiancée who waited 3 years for me to come home from a war I never returned from. I told myself I'd just have coffee with you, then just a few dates. Then somehow I was proposing, and for the first time in 45 years, I wanted to stop running. But the cancer diagnosis changed everything. Stage 4 lung, Agent Orange finally catching up. The doctors gave me 6 months. I wanted to spend them with you. Crawford's letter explained the honeymoon mystery. I knew I was dying faster than expected. Started coughing blood on day 2 in Bali. Couldn't let you watch me deteriorate. Couldn't die in that paradise and ruin it forever for you. So I created one last exit. The Miami trip was to liquidate everything quickly. I knew investigators would find it eventually, but I hoped the charity donations would confuse them enough to protect you from suspicion. The young man who bought the Bugatti, Kevin Morales, is the grandson of a man whose life I saved in Cambodia. I've been anonymously supporting his family for decades. The car was a final gift. I staged my disappearance at the cliffs, then paid cash to reach Jakarta. Found a small crematorium that wouldn't ask questions. Spent my last 3 days making sure no trail would lead back to you. I'm sorry for the pain, Dorothy, but a quick disappearance seemed kinder than making you watch me die by degrees. You'd already buried one husband. I couldn't put you through that again. The USB drive contained financial records, photos from Crawford's various lives, and contact information for dozens of people he'd helped over the years. There was also a video message, recorded on his phone in what appeared to be a shabby Jakarta hotel room. Crawford looked gaunt, clearly in his final days. Dorothy, he said to the camera, his voice weak but clear, I want you to know that our wedding day was the happiest of my life. For 45 years, I've been running, hiding, pretending. With you, for just a moment, I got to be real. I got to be loved. Thank you for that gift. The FBI verified what they could. James Edwin Crawford had indeed been listed as MIA in 1978. The helicopter crash was real, though still classified. The CIA wouldn't confirm or deny the missing money, citing national security. Technically, he committed fraud using false identities, the federal prosecutor told Dorothy, but he's dead. The statute of limitations has passed on the original theft, if it even was theft from a legal standpoint, and every cent seems to have gone to charity. We're closing the case. Dorothy was left with more questions than answers. How many people had Walter, James, helped over the decades? How many lives had he saved with his stolen fortune? How many identities had he shed like snakeskins? She found partial answers in the USB files, scholarship funds created under various names, medical bills mysteriously paid for struggling families, small businesses saved by anonymous investors. The man who'd swept her off her feet had been like a one-man witness protection program, if witnesses protected everyone but themselves. The story leaked, as stories do. The spy who loved me. Charleston widow discovers husband was missing CIA operative, made national headlines. Internet sleuths dissected every detail. Conspiracy theorists had a field day. But for Dorothy, the noise faded into background static. She was dealing with a more personal aftermath. He lied to us, Mum, Jennifer said during one of many family dinners spent processing the truth. Everything was a lie. Not everything, Dorothy replied, surprising herself with the certainty. He lied about his name, his past, his history, but the man who held my hand, who danced with me at our wedding, who made me laugh every morning, that was real. The hardest part was the grieving. How do you mourn someone who never existed? How do you process love that was built on deception, but felt genuine? Dorothy found herself defending Walter, James, to friends who called him a con artist. A con artist takes, she'd say. He gave money, time, joy. Yes, he lied, but lying to protect others, lying while living in service, is that evil? I don't know anymore. Today, 18 months after Walter Harrison fell from a cliff in Bali and James Edwin Crawford died alone in Jakarta, questions remain. Why did Crawford choose Dorothy? Of all the cities, all the people, why did he decide to stop running for her? Was it really just resemblance to a long-lost love or something more? How many other James Crawfords are out there? Former operatives, witnesses, or others who chose to disappear and reinvent themselves? How many are living double, triple, quadruple lives? What about the original mission? Crawford's documents carefully avoided details about what his helicopter was doing with $3 million in cash. What operation required that kind of untraceable money? Who were they paying? What secrets died with him in Jakarta? The charity recipients created a network of sorts. When the story broke, dozens came forward with stories of mysterious benefactors who'd saved them from bankruptcy, paid for life-saving operations, or funded their education. The descriptions varied, but investigators believe many were Crawford in his various identities. He was like a guardian angel, said Maria Rodriguez, whose daughter's cancer treatment was paid for by a Richard Thompson in 2003. Showed up when we were desperate, helped us, then vanished. We tried to find him to say thank you, but he was gone. The safety deposit box contained one more surprise, a bank account in Dorothy's name with $1.2 million. For the life we should have had, Crawford's letter explained. I know you won't want it, but maybe you'll find a way to use it that would make us both smile. Dorothy struggled with the money for months. It felt tainted, even though Crawford insisted it was earned through legitimate investments, not the original CIA funds. Her children urged her to keep it. Dad would want you secure, Michael argued. Instead, Dorothy created the Walter Harrison Foundation. I can't bring him back, she told the local news. Can't change what happened, but I can continue what he started, helping people, quietly, without fanfare. The foundation focuses on veterans with terminal illnesses, helping them settle affairs and support their families. In its first year, It's helped dozens of people face death with dignity and peace. He'd hate the irony, Dorothy told her daughter. Spent 45 years running from his military past, and here I am, using his money to help soldiers. But somehow, I think he'd understand. The official investigation is closed, but the mystery of James Edwin Crawford lingers. How did he stay hidden for so long in an age of digital surveillance? Were there other people like him, other ghosts giving away fortunes? What was Operation Prometheus, the classified mission mentioned in one of his documents? Who else knew his secret? The Morales family clearly had some connection. Why Charleston? Why Dorothy? Why then? Private investigators hired by documentary filmmakers continue to dig. The CIA still refuses to comment. Veterans who served in Crawford's unit claim no memory of him, though one admitted off-record, "Some missions we were told to forget. Some people we were told never existed." Kevin Morales, the young man with the Bugatti, eventually came forward with his own piece of the puzzle. "My grandfather told me stories about an American who saved his village in Cambodia. Said the man would send money every few years, always from different places, different names. When Walter Harrison contacted me about buying the car, he knew things only that American would know. I didn't ask questions. My family owed him everything." Dorothy still gets calls from investigators, journalists, and conspiracy theorists. A Hollywood studio wants to buy her story. Netflix is developing a documentary. She turns them all down. "It's not my story to sell," she says. "It belongs to everyone he helped, everyone he was." Sometimes she pulls out the photo from the safety deposit box, young James Crawford in his flight suit standing by his helicopter. She tries to see Walter in those young features, tries to understand how that soldier became her husband, how a theft became a mission, how a lie became a love story. Her children have slowly come to terms with the strange truth of their stepfather. "He loved Mom," Jennifer admitted recently. "Whatever else he was, whoever else he was, he loved her." You could see it. The charity work continues. The Walter Harrison Foundation has expanded, helping veterans nationwide. Dorothy insists on keeping overhead minimal. "He hated waste," she explains. "Every dollar possible goes to those in need." But late at night, when Dorothy can't sleep, she finds herself wondering, is he really dead? The crematorium records were minimal. No DNA test was possible. No one actually saw James Crawford die. A man capable of faking 12 identities, of staying invisible for 45 years. Could he fake one more death? "He's gone," she tells herself firmly. The cancer was real. She'd seen him hiding the pain, noticed the weight loss he blamed on travel, the blood on his handkerchief he thought she didn't see. But still. 6 months ago, Dorothy received another unmarked package. Inside was a single photo, a sunset over rice paddies, the kind of view they'd admired together in Bali. No message, no return address. The postmark was smudged beyond reading. She had the photo analyzed. It was recent, taken with a digital camera within the last year. The metadata had been scrubbed. Professional investigators found nothing conclusive. "Could be anyone," Detective Wells told her. "Journalists love to play games with cases like this. Don't read too much into it." But Dorothy knows Walter's photography, knows how he framed shots, the angles he preferred. The photo sits on her nightstand now, next to their wedding picture. She doesn't really believe he's alive, can't afford to believe it, but sometimes in crowded places, she finds herself looking for a familiar profile, a certain way of walking. Sometimes the phone rings and she holds her breath before answering. The mind plays tricks, her therapist says. Grief combined with mystery creates hope where none exists. Dorothy nods, agrees, takes her prescribed medications for anxiety, but she's also kept her passport renewed, just in case. The Walter Harrison Foundation has helped over 200 veterans in its first 18 months. Dorothy receives letters from grateful families, stories of final wishes fulfilled, dignity preserved. She reads everyone. "You don't know me," one letter began, "but your husband helped my father 30 years ago, paid off our farm's mortgage when Dad was dying. We never knew why. Now we do. Thank you for continuing his work." These letters arrive regularly, Crawford's network revealing itself slowly, carefully. Dorothy has started a map marking every city where Walter or one of his identities helped someone. The pins stretch across 6 continents. He was everywhere, she tells Michael, staring at the map. How can one person be everywhere? Maybe he wasn't just one person, Michael suggests. Maybe there were others. Maybe there's a whole network of them out there. It's a thought that keeps Dorothy awake. If James Crawford could reinvent himself 12 times, give away $100 million, stay hidden for 45 years, what else is possible? Who else is out there living impossible lives? The search for answers continues, and hope never dies. If unsolved mysteries like this move you, stories of hidden identities, families who refuse to give up, and the belief that truth will eventually surface, then you're exactly where you belong. Hit that like button if this story made you feel something, and you believe answers are still out there. And listen, if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Every single week we dive deep into cases that law enforcement gave up on, stories that mainstream media won't touch, and mysteries that deserve answers. Your subscription literally helps us investigate more cases, reach more families, and maybe, just maybe, help solve these crimes. We're not just telling stories here. We're fighting for justice, one case at a time. Subscribe right now and join our growing army of truth seekers who refuse to let these cases die in forgotten file cabinets. Hit that notification bell because you won't want to miss what we uncover next. Some of these revelations will absolutely blow your mind. And please share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who might hold a piece of the puzzle. What detail in this case bothered you the most? Was Crawford a hero or a criminal? Do you think he's really dead? Or could this master of disguise have pulled off one final disappearance? What do you make of that final photograph Dorothy received? Let us know in the comments below. Your perspective might be exactly what's needed to crack this case. What unsolved mystery should we explore next? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, remember, the search for answers continues, and every case deserves to be solved.